For your listening pleasure, here's Pulizzi and Rose, covering the week of media, marketing, and digital content news. This Old Marketing. Take it away, boys.
Hello, my friends. This is Robert Rose, and welcome to episode number 345 of This Old Marketing for October 13th, 2022. And with me, as always, my good friend, my colleague, and, well, let's be honest, one of the only guys that's excited for the new Blink-182 reunion tour, Mr. Joe Pulizzi. You are excited, I assume.
Oh my gosh, I'm over the moon excited because I have friends that love Blink-182.
Really?
Yes, and one of them
almost as much as Nickelback.
One of them listens. One of them listens to this podcast, so I can't say anything bad about 182. Isn't that all? That's all the small things, right? All the small. Yeah, that's Blink-182. Now, I don't know any other songs. Did they have other songs?
They do. They have many other songs, and whoever your friend is that loves Blink-182 is yelling at the screen,
saying,
right now.
It's this song and that song and whatever. But I actually thought that if you go to a Blink-182 concert, they just play all the small things over and over again.
Over and over again. Yeah, there you go.
Well, it starts with all the small things. Well, maybe all the microscopic things, and then the small things.
That's
and
right.
Then the medium-sized things, and then the large things. And then
that is exactly right. Yes.
I'm very excited about this concert.
Yes. For those of you who don't know what we're talking about, and we could even put a link to the show notes if you're so inclined. But I guess Travis Barker and Tom DeLonge, who I guess haven't been together in a long time, or basically it's the original lineup, I guess, is the big news that, I mean, and the reason I didn't think it was that big a news, but I mean, people are really excited about it. I didn't know Blink-182 was still a thing.
Is that like Blink? Is it Blink-180? Like, what's the V1?
Sure. No, I think it's probably Blink-185 by now.
185.
I think it's,
yeah. But so then, basically they go to what's the thing that you go to the Wayback Time Machine? So they did the Wayback Time Machine.
Yeah.
And they went from 185 back to 182. So this is very exciting. I'm definitely gonna. Yeah. See, I'm
not listen.
There's only a couple musical groups that I would go see in person. One is, I'm a big Red Hot Chili Peppers fan. Just saw them, Detroit.
I actually didn't know that. I didn't know that.
God, it's off. I love the Chili Peppers.
Fantastic.
One of my first albums.
They're great.
One of the first.
Yeah, they're wonderful.
One of the first CDs I ever purchased was CDs. That's funny. We still have CDs. I did.
They don't, Boomer.
Well,
yeah. Okay, Boomer.
First record I ever purchased was, I think, Monday Rain by the Bee Gees. But I digress.
Okay.
Blood Sugar Sex Magic. I remember that one. I was, I think, 17 or 18 when that came out, and I played it all the time. Love that.
Wow.
Under the Bridge.
It's a great. Yeah. All their albums are great. I mean, I remember seeing them for the first time on MTV. I'll never forget this. I was in college and saw Red Hot Chili Peppers on MTV, and it was the what is it? I'm trying to remember the name of the song. Something. Dead Coyotes or Dead. Real men don't shoot coyotes. Somebody else is yelling at the speaker right now that I'm messing it up.
You're good.
But anyway, I was like, who is this? What the hell is this band? I could not figure it out. And then they came out with the album, and I was like, oh, I get it. I really get it. It was revolutionary for the time. It was
you would love the new album. You absolutely would. You can get it anywhere that they stream music. You can get it on Spotify or Apple Music. But no, we talked about this before, but did you see Woodstock 99, the documentary on Netflix?
I did. I've based on your recommendation.
So you saw the part where Red Hot Chili Peppers performed.
Yeah.
When Anthony Kiedis had the crowd in the palm of his hand.
Which isn't a good
thing when there are fires everywhere. And it was like Lord of the Flies magnified. But
it was crazy. That documentary was crazy. I don't even remember it. I mean, I remember the event, but I do not. I mean, this is the days before social media and mobile, video and all that stuff. So you were getting basically the news reports, but holy moly, was that crazy.
That's a crazy.
The destruction was just, it was absolutely unbelievable.
And then Fred Durst on stage as well. It's just, I want to watch it again, but it was so disturbing the first time that I watched it. But I really couldn't believe when the Chili Peppers came out on stage. I mean, I don't remember it, but now that I watched the documentary, Flea comes out on stage butt naked. I mean, he was...
Yeah, exactly.
The man has a lot of confidence. I got to tell you. That's...
Well, not to put too fine a point on it, but he's got every right to have the confidence, let's be honest. I mean, probably should end there.
We probably shouldn't go any further. But I will tell you this. So we talked about Chili Peppers. I am a very crazy, eclectic style of music that I love, and I'm going to see Barry Manilow next week as well.
We've gone from Blink-182 to Red Hot Chili Peppers to Barry Manilow.
Isn't that crazy? I mean, I appreciate both in very different ways.
Yeah.
I don't think there's going to be like a mosh pit at Manilow. But
you probably won't. No, yeah.
You don't know. I heard it's great. I heard he does all the hits, and he still looks like a human being after all.
Here's what I want to understand: will you stand up
when he walks out on stage?
Or just any time, right? I mean, during one of his, he does Copacabana or something like that. In those kinds of concerts, it's always sort of this weird, awkward, like, do you stand or not for the hits? Do you stand and dance? Because everybody sort of sits for most of those. They mostly just sit there and listen, right? And it's like if you stand and the people behind you don't stand, then you feel bad because you're blocking their view. But if you don't stand, then it was always weird to me, those kinds of concerts, like rock concerts, or dance concerts. Of course you stand, right? You're probably standing the entire time. But concerts like Barry Manilow or Michael Bublé or somebody like that, it's like, do you stand?
I think that most of the time you probably sit, and I think that that's fine. But if something like Mandy comes on, which Mandy was probably one of his first best songs ever.
Sure.
I think I would probably talk to the people around me and say, hey, man, this is Mandy. I mean, you got to get up. You got to tack on your seat. Stand up. Let's do this thing. Or two ships. Like,
stand up during Mandy.
We're two ships that sail in the night. I mean, that pass in the night. I absolutely love that one. There's so many. I'm not a big Copacabana fan. I don't like the disco-y stuff that he did.
Oh, you are crazy. Yeah, no, you're crazy. That stuff's great.
I'll sing it just like everybody else, but it's not my favorite song. I really like the ballads. And a lot of people don't know Barry Manilow, one of the most accomplished songwriters that has ever been. This has probably written more number one hits for people than actually performed himself.
Yeah.
I believe that's correct.
Very similar to the Bee Gees, as you mentioned earlier,
that's
right?
Exactly right.
It's very much more successful songwriters than they were actual. I mean, Bee Gees were, of course, insanely popular for a while, but actually, arguably, the most successful part of their career was as songwriters.
Another good documentary.
It's a great documentary. I love the Bee Gees.
Is that on Netflix? I don't know.
Yeah, it is. It is on Netflix.
Boy, it's so crazy, and not to give anything away because it's already happened, but they were literally out on the tour doing the disco Bee Gees thing because it didn't start out that way. And they got into the whole thing, and Barry Gibb did the voice, and Saturday Night Fever, and the whole thing came out and took off, and then became what everybody hated. Like when everybody thought of disco and there was this turn and you could sense it was happening, everybody pointed at the Bee Gees, and then people started to like burn their records and stuff while they're on tour.
I remember that when I was a kid, and I was probably, maybe 11 or 12 at the time. I don't remember exactly the year that it happened, but they speak to it in the documentary where at the baseball game they did the record burning, and it turned into a complete shit show, and it was unbelievable. And I remember that on the news. I can still remember it. The disco sucks signs and the hats and the T-shirts and all that stuff. It was crazy.
I think the turning point was probably Disco Duck. Was that Rick Dees?
Yes, it was
when Rick Dees did Disco Duck. Everyone said, "All right, we've jumped the shark," and Jump the Shark actually didn't even happen yet with Happy Days, did it? It was right around the same time. I think they all jumped the shark at the same time.
It actually had happened at that point. Yes.
And anyways, okay, we've got a lot of things to cover, but
we do.
I do. Before you do that, your Cowboys are 4-1. Congratulations. You got to be very happy about this.
We're happy, hashtag rush hour. Yeah, with our backup quarterback, things are good. We'll see what happens this Sunday when they face the 5-0 Eagles. But life is good for the Dallas Cowboys right now. Their defense is playing lights out.
That's what we need. I mean, we're averaging 30 points a game, and we're 2-3. It's because the defense can't. It's like marshmallow. They can't. They went out and picked up Deion Jones, a linebacker, this week because the general manager's so upset. Swiss cheese going right through the line. They can't stop anybody. So hopefully, and then on the same point, we're very happy though with Cleveland sports because the Guardians are in the playoffs as of right now. We're recording this right before Game 2 happens against the New York Yankees. So we'll see how that goes. It's truly a David versus Goliath. We are the youngest team in the league and I think the smallest payroll in the league at the same time. And the Yankees have the number 1 payroll. So it would be wonderful.
My Dodgers playing pretty well too.
Dodgers, so. See, you're living life the right way. I don't know what's going on with you, but you're doing something.
As we record this, I'm living life in Boston.
You're in Boston. That's right. You're at Marketing Profs.
The Marketing Profs.
B2B.
The B2B conference.
And you spoke on what topic? Would it be content marketing?
Oh, goodness gracious. I'm going to give you 4 guesses. Yes.
Would it be content marketing?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Before we get started, again, Creator Economy Expo, which is May 1st to 3rd, and you know this, we've talked about it on the show. We have Call for Speakers that's ending this week. So anybody listening,
fantastic,
that you're a content creator, you think you've got a great story to tell, you want to teach some other creators how to do something, whether it's drive revenue, create content, build business models, Web3, whatever it might be, go to cex.events. And you'll see at the top, you can click on the speakers and apply for speakers. You can do that, I think, before the 16th of October. So please get on that. I don't know if you've submitted yours yet, Mr. Rose, but
I haven't. No. Yeah.
You think just because we talk every week that it's going to be that easy for you, huh?
I know a guy. I think I know a guy.
You might know the wrong guy.
Yeah, that's right.
You might know. You've been knowing the wrong guy for the last 10 years.
That's true.
Hasn't helped you
that
one
is true.
bit.
That is true. It has brought me nothing but pain and suffering. That is for sure.
That's absolutely true. That's absolutely. We built the foundation of this relationship on pain and suffering. So
pain and suffering, right?
We're not
pain,
used
suffering,
to
and desperation.
If it's anything different, we just feel out of water. So. All right. Oh, now I'm ready.
All right. We have a great show, a very interesting show for sure. We've got a number of stories to talk about. The first is PayPal going to be the new thought police, issuing some warning about misinformation and how they might fine you for it. We'll talk a little bit about the reality of what that's all about. Then we'll talk about the economy of the social media and creators. Interesting article there, and that brings up all kinds of research and stats and talking about where the creator economy might be in the context of social media. Then we'll talk about CNN. Seemingly, they pulled the rug on CNN Plus, and they may now have pulled the rug on their latest NFT project. We'll have to take a look at that.
Do they even have any more carpeting? I mean,
they may not. They may not have any more rug to pull.
Left. Yeah,
that's right. And then if we get time, we'll talk about subscriptions and how, interestingly, people are turning off a lot of other things in this economy before they actually turn off their subscriptions. We'll talk about what those things may be. I'm going to actually rant a little bit about the White House and what's going on with their new Bill of Rights on artificial intelligence. And then I'm going to rave just very quickly about a content marketing project that is just fantastic. Love hearing about great content marketing projects. And you are going to talk a little bit about your experience at the crypto conference.
Yep, Crypto Business Conference. I have there was a very interesting. There was a consistency throughout all the presentations that I'm going to talk about that I found, and I think it's important for our wonderful audience and community to hear this. It's mind blowing. So anyways, but anyway, yeah,
it'll either be mind blowing or mind numbing,
something like that. Yeah, but actually, I just got my wife and I just got back late last night. You know, okay, I didn't even know this was a thing. You have to have a certain amount of flight attendants on a plane, or they can't take off. Did you know this?
That's right.
We had -1 the number that we needed, and we were all sitting there. Everyone's there. They're waiting to go, and they get on the speaker and they say, sorry, we're delayed because we don't have another flight attendant.
Yep.
I really thought you could say, I'm like, just don't do drink service. You know, I mean, I know that they do more than that, but just you got the pilots there. You got at least one flight attendant. It's a small crowd. It was only like 70 people. Come on, we can do this.
I'm sure that's a union rule. I
thought it was an FAA. Yeah. Was it a union rule?
It may be an FAA rule. Yeah, it may be an FAA rule as well, because they may have to have a certain number of flight attendants per number of passengers for safety considerations. But
we were lucky.
Yeah, no, I've run into that.
Somebody came, so the one flight attendant called in sick. They had to go find somebody decided that they were going to work overtime and take the flight from Chicago to Cleveland, and luckily that happened, and they got a big round of applause when they came down the walkway. It was wonderful. It was kind of chilling, actually.
Yeah, chilling goosebumps.
Yes.
Did you get goosebumps?
Pam really had to be back by. She had a meeting that she had to go to at 8:00. It was really, really important that she had to be there. So I'm like, okay, do I rent a car? There's no other planes. This was, 10 o'clock Eastern time. There's no other planes around. There's not many places. There are not many planes from Chicago to Cleveland going that late at night. Just not happening. So we're like, what do we do? Enough. And then luckily this happened. And we made it. Yay!
Oh, there you go. Yay. Right. Well, just in time for the show.
Yeah, exactly.
All right.
That's what's important.
Let's get to our first story here, which is coming to us courtesy of the Washington Post. The headline here, PayPal faces backlash after floating fines for sharing misinformation. The article opens up by saying, Happy Monday. Have you ever had a moment where you realize just how much time you've wasted doing something? I'm right there with you, says the author. Send decorating and news tips to, and then he puts his email address there, all of that kind of stuff. And then he says, okay, now to get to the point, PayPal is facing blowback. Not even sure why he opened that way, but he did. Facing blowback for proposing rules that would have allowed it to fine users $2,500 for promoting misinformation, which the online payment service has since called an error. Over the weekend, several conservative news outlets reported that the tech company updated its terms of agreement under which PayPal can levy fines against users for violations, to include the sending, posting, or publication of any messages, content, or materials that promote misinformation. The update immediately sparked uproar online on the right, marking the latest instance that a major online payment service has faced heat over its moderation practices. And then it goes through a bunch of tweets from conservative politicians who are, jumping, gleefully, it seems, jumping all over PayPal for this. The move drew a rare rebuke from PayPal's former president, David Marcus, as well as, you guessed it, and are unsurprised, Mr. Elon Musk, who has been sharply critical of social media companies' moderation practices and had floated changes to Twitter if he completes his deal to buy the company. The article goes on to then basically add that PayPal has said, sorry, never mind, that wasn't supposed to go out, that's not the policy, wasn't supposed to be published. Basically claiming, they don't actually say this, but the CMS, somebody pushed the big red publish button that shouldn't. So it might as well have been lorem ipsum that was in there instead of, regular content. No. But I don't know. What do you think? I mean, is this them basically pulling back on something they were going to pull back on, or is this something that basically somebody wrote something that shouldn't have been written and it got published?
No, I actually think that this was going to be a thing. And we've seen it in a lot of other places, right? Not whether it's Facebook or Instagram or whatever. It's like, hey, you can do this, you can't do this. Twitter's kick people off their platform. Here's the thing: they could, if you're using their rails, PayPal in this instance, they could do whatever they want. So everybody gets up in arms. The article is really interesting as it goes through all the, mostly from what I can tell, Republicans that are jumping on saying, oh, this is terrible. This is terrible. Boy, I'll tell you what, is there anything about when it comes to money, if somebody's trying to take your money, and I'm making a political statement here, but the But the right is really concerned about that. They're less concerned about taking other things, but they're really concerned about money. So that's just like, wow, look at all of them. Now, here's the interesting thing. This is PayPal. It's one company. When I was at the Crypto Business Conference, Travis Wright, who is a phenomenal speaker, has been in crypto for a long time. Him and Joe Com have the Bad Crypto podcast. He was really concerned multiple times talking about central bank digital currencies. And actually, as of today, there are a lot of people talking about CBDCs because Janet Yellen just came out and said, oh, we need more CBDCs. I just want to say that this little PayPal thing happening is a precursor to some things that are going to happen in the United States if we're not careful, because if we launch a CBDC, they're going to be able to. The U.S. government's going to be able to show.
What is
basically
a CBDC?
It's a digital. The U.S. wants to launch a digital currency, and basically what that means is that they would have control to give you money and also take money away from your federal account. And there's been some people that whether you're for a universal basic income. The thought was, if we ever did a universal basic income, in order to give out that money and to make it work, everyone would get basically a federal bank account, and that federal bank account would be funded with a digital currency, central bank digital currency. China already has one, and China's doing really well with it. And what China loves is because they know exactly who has it, they know where you are, where you're using it, and they can shut off access to it whenever they want. This is kind of where we're going, and this is why I can see a lot of right-wingers get really upset, and I'm concerned as well, because I think we're heading toward this. So that's what I thought of when I saw this PayPal thing is, okay, this is one company, one private company, and they can do whatever they want. As soon as we agree to the terms and conditions, you basically have to either feed into it or you don't. Go somewhere else. And that's where I think we're going to go. We're getting more and more used to outside companies having more control over the money that we have as it goes all over the place digitally, and I think this is where we're heading. So I guess my take is, if you play in this world that we're living in, if you want to play in the world of the book 1984, we should actually expect more of this to happen. And I don't want to be so negative about it, Robert, but I actually feel that this is where most governments want to go, and it starts this way. It starts with private companies trying to do it and saying, you can do this, you can't do this, you want to play by our rules. We've seen it in social media, and we're going to move on further. So am I really exaggerating here? Is this too much?
I think you can probably take off your small tinfoil hat for a moment. Yeah, there's so first of all, the first thing I read when I read the article, then there are multiple, by the way, articles that cover this story because it was everywhere. We just picked the Washington Post because it was one of the more mainstream articles that sort of covered the both sides of the issue. There are plenty out there that sort of are even more inflammatory, and some that are the other way, basically saying oh, they never meant to do this. But to me, my first reaction was, who publishes content on PayPal? Like, is there some hidden social network or content platform that I don't know about that PayPal has? Because they have no jurisdiction over any other platform.
No. No, this is how I took it. No, it's a really good point. I think that if you hook up to their rails, just like if you hook up to Stripe or whatever the case is, and they don't like what you're communicating, they can shut it down. They could shut down their rails.
You mean, so if my payment mechanism on my blog, for example, is PayPal?
Yes.
To pay for a subscription,
I read it.
And you can
pay. Am I wrong with that? Because that's
I don't know. Well, I mean, I don't think any of us can know whether we're right or wrong because they said they didn't mean to do it, right? So now whether they're coming off of that or they're using that as a PR, mechanism, it's hard. It's hard to know, but it strikes me that it would be unenforceable. You can't just take money. That's illegal. You can't take money because you don't like something somebody said, right? I mean, you can get kicked off the platform, or they could refuse to process your your transaction, but that would never stand up in court for them to actually say, on your blog you said X, that's misinformation, therefore we're going to fine you $2,500. That's robbery.
So are you basically saying that somebody in the publishing group just made a big mistake and published this?
I don't know. I don't know. It could have been that it meant something different. Like you can't use our platform to say something that's misinformation. Like, when you make a payment for something, or if you're spreading misinformation that includes our, that they reserve the right to. I don't know what it actually meant. I can't even really. I mean, beyond sort of the knee jerk, which I thought was, that was basically just piling on from the conservative politicians. Basically, they weren't yelling at PayPal; they were yelling at Facebook and Twitter because there's this perceived, slight that they've been giving. They believe that, somehow right-wing discussion has been thwarted on those platforms, which of course it hasn't. But that's a whole other discussion. But it just strikes me that the whole thing reeked of a mistake. Like, it just, I don't understand it.
Well, and according to the article, it says that PayPal, which you went through this, but PayPal updated their terms of agreement, and it says to include violations, to include the sending, posting, or publication of any messages, content, or materials that promote misinformation.
Right.
So that would be if you are using PayPal services and they believe, whoever the judge and jury is for PayPal, that you're posting, and it would only probably happen if you are relatively important and you have an audience, because you have an audience, why do they care? So there's that.
Well, the only thing I can think of is that this represents them getting ahead of their skis. In other words, maybe there is some announcement of some new product coming where you can actually build content on the PayPal platform or a PayPal platform. And basically the terms and services agreement got ahead of the announcement of the product or the platform. And so
that could be. Yeah, that absolutely could be.
They messed up there, right? They're basically trying to cover all their bases, but basically legal got ahead of the announcement of some, because otherwise it's just, I don't even see how it doesn't stand up to me. I'm no lawyer for sure, but that just to me is robbery. You can't just take money. It's like I can't just establish a rule that says basically, my bank can't say basically, hey, if you say something we don't like on your blog, we're going to take $2,500 out of your account. I mean, that's illegal. You can't do that. It's theft. So I struggle with this whole thing.
I hear what you're saying, but if it's in the terms and conditions that nobody reads, and they have it in there, and you agree to it, they can do it. They can, and it might be ultimately found illegal because it's outside of their jurisdiction or whatever the case.
Anything can be right. Anybody can do anything, right? I mean, I can have and buried in my terms and conditions, I mean, so one of the friends and family of this show is a lawyer, and they really enjoy writing fun, weird contracts, right? Basically, dumbing down or basically making contracts that aren't, they're not legal necessarily, but they're basically say straight up what they do. And, they were telling me one of my clauses could be, I need cocaine in my dressing room, right? It's like, yeah, my contract can say that. That doesn't make it any less illegal for it to happen. And nobody can rightfully sign that without it, without the entire contract being void. So anyway, I struggle to understand the actual, without, other than the sort of positioning that everybody seems to be getting on board with here. I struggle with the whole thing. Well, other than a mistake.
Yeah, okay. I mean, it might be a mistake. I would just say that this is good training for us as we move through, because first of all, we've talked about it on the show. This is happening more and more with the social networks. It's going to continue to happen, and I think that we have to be aware that there are a few large entities, PayPal included, and other ones that we've just discussed, that are going to try to land grab as much as they can.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
I think stay tuned for
actually.
Yeah, and I think stay tuned for some announcement from PayPal forthcoming that is some new content platform. That would be my guess. That's my big prediction.
I didn't think about that, Robert, but it makes a lot of sense if you think about. Somebody asked me the other day, like, who in the next 5 years, who are going to be the largest financial institutions? And the first two companies that came out of my mouth were Apple and Google, because they already are. Just nobody thinks of them that way. Stayed at the Hilton Bayfront in San Diego, and this is the first time I saw, like, you can pay by credit card, but the first two listed, Apple Pay and Google Pay. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Okay.
Yep. The Apple credit card was the largest credit card launch in history.
Unbelievable. Just wait for the Apple car.
Yeah. It's going to be crazy.
Okay.
It's going to be crazy.
Okay.
Well, speaking of the economy, there is news on the economy. This comes to us courtesy of alts.co. Do you know this website?
I have seen it before, and this is a really impressive article. So
it's really an impressive article. The amount of research that went into this article is impressive. The headline here is the economics of social media accounts. The article opens up by saying, while Web3 opens new ways for creators to earn, social media still mostly lives in a Web2 world. And to keep in this world, creators need to make the numbers work. It's exactly these social media economics that we'll look at in this article. And then it goes on to say creators are grumbling. Basically, that the finances, we've talked about this on this show, from YouTube and from shared platforms have been going down. In other words, the revenue share of advertising is going down across different platforms. Then they go into how big is the creator economy. They talk about it basically being a $105 billion industry, roughly equivalent to the GDP of the 50 lowest countries combined. Then they talk about creator earnings, and they basically look together and have cobbled together a few different sources of creator economy earnings from those, basically some amazing stats in there. YouTube economics, talked about YouTube. They talk about just all sorts of things in this very long article. Instagram, all of Facebook, all of the TikTok, basically really a roundup, if you will, of all of the kinds of things that are going on across social media and how creators are making money from it. And basically their closing thought or their conclusion is that basically that creator marketing, as they call it, recognizes that old ways of advertising don't work like they used to, and that there are these new ways of making money that will become much more mainstream in the future. So what did you take out of all of this? There's a lot to chew on.
There's so much. Yeah, I would recommend that if you're going to read an article, go through this one and just look at it so you can see what's going on. I mean, there's a little bit of a creator economy winter, if you will, going on, and the article talks about this with the fact that a lot of these influencer deals are not as large as they were in 2020 and 2021. And then it also talks about the amount of money made on some of these platforms. What I think is interesting is that TikTok pays the least and it's growing the fastest.
Yeah.
I don't know what that should mean to me, Robert, but it seems meaningful that the network that's just taking off and starting to eat Meta's lunch here, they're not paying a lot out in revenues. And the other thing that I thought of, and I wanted to get your take on it, I don't know what the number is. What did you say? $105 billion industry? Whatever it is, we don't know what it is.
Yeah, doesn't matter.
There's either
it's a lot of money.
There's 50 million creators or 200 million creators. There's a billion creators. You hear and there's a lot of money going to these creators. My thinking is this: you've got big companies, Google, you've got Meta, you've got ByteDance with TikTok. They see how much money is going to the creators, and you might not think, oh, hey, can the creator really make a living? Well, we could talk about all that stuff, like what's enough for a creator to make a living. But when you look at this and you see the size of multiple countries going to these creators, I think you get these big companies that are concerned about that. I think in 2021, everybody was like, oh, hey, if YouTube wants to keep their creators and Twitch wants to keep their creators, they've got to pay more money. I think we've totally done a 180. I think they're totally taking it back. They're going to take as much as they can back because they can do it right now. And there's a lot of creators that are desperate, and they'll do whatever they have to on these platforms. That's why, of course, we say don't build your content house on rented land. Figure out different ways that you can monetize directly. But let's be honest. There's 95% of content creators out there that don't do that. They make their living directly through a YouTube or directly through an Instagram, and not using those platforms to leverage their overall brand and business. And I'm really concerned. So I got through this. I read it a couple times, and I just kept coming out saying, this is not good for creators. I think all these numbers are going lower for them.
No doubt. We are, here's an interesting lens to look at this through. And I covered this in my news piece at the end of last week. So if you pair this so the IAB, the Internet Advertising Bureau, just came out with a new research study, and this statistic just floored me, which is media consumption habits have now, content creator consumption has now eclipsed streaming media and broadcast television. In other words, they said, in other words, the percentage of media consumption was 39% on content creator, meaning TikTok and Facebook and YouTube and all that. So content, basically amateur, if you will, or content creator oriented content, versus 38% combined of broadcast television and streaming networks, meaning basically more people are consuming media on an everyday basis of content creators than they are of movies and television shows, et cetera. And with the investment now, because they were way over invested in production content, the studios and Netflix and Amazon Prime and all the rest of them, you starting to see that this trend may continue, and that you have sort of mainstream media now becoming more TikTok-y or YouTube, et cetera, where television and streaming become sort of the niche, which is just a fascinating trend.
Yeah.
If you look at this, what I think you're seeing, and I would, this is a total hypothesis on my part with your question on TikTok, is you're just seeing a gold rush, right? You're seeing a gold rush of content creators that absolutely will wear itself out, right? There's just only so much gold in the hills, and a very few people are going to find it, and you'll ultimately end up with a lot of consolidation, a lot of the long tail shortening quite a bit, and basically I think you'll end up kind of. It'll rebalance itself, I think, is where it'll end up.
We might already be past that point to what you just said. I think so. We've seen the tip. It was probably the middle of last year when everything was just taken off. We were having a bull market and everything at that time, especially with content creation, and these companies were paying whatever they had to keep these creators on, and Twitch and YouTube were going back and forth and not paying enough or paying too much, whatever the case. And now we're at a point where I think content creators need to realize this takes a long time. It takes good 2 years plus of consistent delivery on a platform to build an audience and monetize that, so you can be financially independent. It just is, and we cannot count. You can absolutely, and you should absolutely, drive revenue from these platforms. And if TikTok is, like our good friend Jay Bear is doing an amazing job on TikTok and Instagram right now with his tequila stuff. So Jay's got a whole tequila thing going on. He just blew up. He's got a couple 100,000 followers on it. He's getting really good engagement. He's getting tequila companies sending him tequila, like all kinds of stuff. He's got more tequila that he knows what to do with right now. He's doing all these reviews. But where Jay's really smart, and that's why I think we're going to do an article on him at the Tilt, he's really focusing on driving email subscriptions from that, because he's got this free report that he did. And that's fascinating. Yep. That's the kind of things that we need to be doing, because whenever TikTok or Instagram change their algorithm, they say, well, Jay's not the flavor of the month anymore. Jay's going to be okay, because he's been working on creating direct relationships with these people. So, yeah. And I think that speaks to the popularity of TikTok too. Another, to your point about, why, because for a while, the perception, whether it's the reality or not, is a different story. But the perception is that it's easier
to get a bigger following on TikTok right now because the consumption is so high that you can actually build a following pretty quickly on TikTok versus an Instagram or a Facebook or a YouTube channel.
And by the way, that's exactly what the article says, because you have a lot more million follower creators on TikTok versus Instagram. Instagram seems to be the big celebs. You really have a 1% thing going on Instagram. TikTok is more of, hey, I can get 100,000 or 1 million followers pretty quickly, but then with TikTok and their algorithm, they can forget all about you.
Oh, sure.
So it's really great for, like, you could, and the article goes through how you could just be found, and in a couple weeks you get a bunch of followers, and then it's crickets. Because, again, you have no control over the algorithm. You are just up to the whim of however they're going to serve that content, and it is not social media anymore. It is content discovery. Yep. It's all content discovery. It's all they care about.
Yep. And by the way, that applies to our marketing too. You need to start thinking about that for your marketing, is how you're doing content discovery rather than searching for content. So start putting that into your heads. Yeah. All right. One last story here before we get to our rants and raves, which is, speaking of crickets, CNN has now pulled the rug on Moments. And basically, this comes to us courtesy of The Verge. The headline is, CNN has been accused of a rug pull as it abandons its NFT project. The article opens up by saying CNN is dropping the development of its marketplace selling collectible moments tied to major news events, angering users who'd spent thousands of dollars and were sold on exclusive access and features coming in the future. On Monday afternoon, as pointed out by Parker Malloy, CNN ended its big Web3 project by announcing, "We have decided that it's time to say goodbye to the Vault" by CNN. You may have already forgotten about it, but Vault by CNN launched in the summer of 2021 as a marketplace for its own NFTs that would act as offer collectors the opportunity to own a piece of history, sort of like an NBA Top Shot card, except for media nerds instead of basketball nerds. It minted CNN reports of key events or artistic interpretations inspired by them, creating digital collectibles that owners could show off somehow or trade with others like baseball cards. Yeah, both of which seemed like idiocy to me at the time, but all right. The idea apparently seemed more reasonable while cryptocurrency prices were sky high, and headlines about NFTs didn't include phrases like trading volume collapses 97% since January peak. The article goes on to basically talk about the crypto winter and why this is a big challenge right now, but basically CNN has said it's going to compensate those collectors with something, but who knows what the heck that's going to be. What do you think about all this, my friend? This is like the first, I think, of many to come.
So I've got a couple takes on it. First of all, if they're going to stop this project, which it sounds like they are, they should just refund the people. If you're just going to say, I'm done, and I see what they're trying to do. They didn't create it as a utility type NFT. They're like, oh, they started as a collectible, and now they're trying to morph it. It's like, okay, well, the collectible NFTs, that's not doing so well, so what do we do now? Let's morph it over to be some useful membership or something like that. Well, you know what? It didn't work, and that's fine. You tried something. Just refund the people. And don't be chintzy about it. And I think that's what they're going to do. They're going to say, well, depending on what the market was and what somebody spent in ETH and all this, they're going to come up with something stupid. And
well, the article quotes the guy from CNN basically saying, expect the distribution amount to be roughly 20% of the original mint price.
That's terrible. Yeah. That's wrong. I'm sorry. CNN, you should just do right. It's not all that much money for you. It was a great experimentation. I don't agree with the model, but that's fine.
Yeah.
Go ahead. You just said we're going to drop it here. Pay them back what they paid for at least the mint cost. And I wouldn't worry about the resale of stuff if somebody paid a lot of money on resale, but at least for the minting, I would give it back and do that. So I wish if everyone got into the fad of the 10,000 or 20,000 image collectibles that do nothing, and I think that I wish they would have done a membership or unlock a special content experience. And I know they sort of positioned it that way, but it really isn't. They're more collectibles than anything else. The opportunity right now, especially in crypto winter, and a lot of people aren't building anymore, is to do something like that, to really figure out what you and your brand can deliver a unique content experience to, and you can do it in the form of an NFT project if you wish to. I wish CNN would have done that, but they need to make good. That's my take.
Yeah, I mean, that's the key, is that, you launched it like a product and then you killed it like a product, but the problem is that you never provided any value of the product. So you have to, it's only right that you return the value that was spent, because you provided zero value. I mean, it's not even like they said, oh, you got 80% of the value out of it, or you got 10% of the value out of it, or whatever. They should just refund everybody the original mint cost, and be done with it. And then it wouldn't be a story.
That's right. It's just like, hey, we tried it. It didn't work for us or whatever. We're going to focus our energy somewhere else, and maybe we'll try again. But right now, we'll make everybody feel, make everybody whole.
Make everybody whole.
Yes.
Yep.
But no.
Exactly. But no.
Somebody's counting the dollars, and I get it.
Yeah.
Somebody in accounting.
Yeah, they got a parent company
that.
Now that's counting the dollars.
Man. I know those conversations. They're not fun. I bet you somebody said, hey, let's just do the right thing and give it back. And somebody that was counting the beans said, no, you're not going to do that, or we're not going to make our quarterly budget. We cannot do the cash flow, blah, whatever.
Yep. All right. Well, speaking of more rants and raves, let's get to our rants and raves, where Joe and I go off on a little bit of a rant or a little bit of a rave, like we're listening to Blink 182, or maybe we're listening to Red Hot Chili Peppers. That's the real key here. So shall I go first?
Go right ahead. I don't really know what you're going to talk about, so I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued.
Well, okay. So this week, and so much thank to Stephen Davis for sending this over in email as a story idea. It was just fascinating. So this week, the White House, meaning the Biden administration, so whitehouse.gov, set out what they're calling the blueprint for an AI bill, an artificial intelligence bill of rights. The subhead of this is making automated systems work for the American people. This is such nonsense. This is 1,500 or 2,000 words, or however many words it is, of just such gobbledygook, such political gobbledygook, that we often complain about how government doesn't get technology and how it's so far behind, and that we need our legislation to actually reflect what's going on. Even some of the stuff that we just talked about in this show, right? It's the stuff about, whether or not the terms and services can be, done for misinformation, things about social media networks, things about artificial intelligence, things about technology. And then for them to come out with something like this, in my mind, is just so ridiculous. Just as one small example, because there are so many to pick on here, you've got one of the Bill of Rights is called the human alternative, right? So in other words, basically you're supposed to have a human be an alternative to some interface. And the metaphor that I use, which was, so in other words, you have a belt where you put all your groceries on it, and the artificial intelligence engine scans the fruit for its weight and price and gives you a price. Theoretically, under this Bill of Rights, you should have a sign that says, by the way, if you don't like the way the belt is doing it, we've got Gladys over here in a corner who will manually weigh your vegetables and give you a price on it, because we have to give you a human alternative to this. I mean, the way that this stuff is worded is so politics, so chock-a-block full of just feel-good, squishy politics. It's just it just made me mad. It's in terms of it's not serious. It's not a serious thing, and so I just expected better. I just expect better from them to be able to do this. So I wanted to rant.
You don't think that it's a good start with something? You don't think?
No, I think it's a poor start. I think it's worse than not starting at all to do something like this.
Ooh,
I think it's words. Yeah, well, if they were going to do something, let's do something real. Let's do something that is a good start. I mean, there's plenty of stuff to be discussed, plenty of things to talk about in terms of how AI and the philosophies behind it, and how the automation and moving people out of specific tasks to move artificial intelligence in. There's so many great philosophical discussions to have there, but not wrapping it in this sort of, we're trying to do right by just the milk toasty sort of words that they use here are just so it's all so clearly designed to be like we're concerned about humans. It's like, okay, thank you, but let's actually talk about a really practical Bill of Rights here, right? It's almost like you start we started our Bill of Rights in the Constitution, and the first Bill of Rights was like everybody should be nice to each other. That's the first Bill of Rights. Second Bill of Rights, you should say thank you when you get a pot of soup from your mother. That's Article number 2 of the Constitution. It's like, no, just let's get real and let's do something with this.
Well, it's almost, to your point, it's almost like when we talk to content marketers about creating content. If it's not going to be exceptional content, it's better just to not do it.
Exactly.
I think that's what you're saying.
Well, that's my point here, really.
The idea might have been sound, but if it's not going to be exceptional for its time, better to hold off.
Exactly. Thank you for that, because that's exactly my point. My point is not to make a comment on artificial intelligence. My comment is really on, putting out something that you call the Bill of Rights that is really just bad content. And, it would have been better just to not do anything at all. My quick rave, and then I'll let you go. I do have a quick rave so that I don't sound all snarky and everything. Is a wonderful content marketing case study, very quick case study, and it's on a blog by the Pittsburgh PR guy and it's they sent it over via email as well. And it was just a wonderful little case study from B2B. Which is it's from the Keystone Contractors Association, and they did a magazine and a podcast. And it's just I'm not going to belabor it here. I'll let you go read it and see it. But I always just love great examples of content marketing, and this was a good one. And I wanted to just give it a shout out on the show.
Nice, awesome. We've been so knee deep in Web3 and social media, we forgot that sometimes we need to talk about content marketing. So
that's right. That's right.
Back.
There you go.
Blink 181.5.
Bringing sexy back is what I'm doing. I'm bringing sexy back.
JT. That's exactly what you're doing.
Yeah.
All right. So I just wanted to give you some commentary that I thought was worthwhile for the people that listen to this show. I went to Crypto Business Conference. It was Michael Stelzner's first crypto business conference. Congratulations to Michael and the team.
Congratulations to Michael.
Put on a great show. Very tough environment to do any kind of events at all right now, especially in the corporate environment. So I enjoyed speaking there. I did my little speech on social tokens, but I listened to a lot of NFT presentations. And Robert, in every one of these NFT presentations, it was recommended to start a community. Like, the first thing you got to do is build a community. And it was almost, and I don't want to be facetious about this whole thing, but it was almost that it was a throwaway line in a lot of cases, because they're like, oh, of course you need to build a community. But then nobody was going into how you build a community.
How do you build a community? Right,
and exactly. It's funny, Annie Alexander was the one of the closing keynotes in the first day.
How to make $1 million. First, start with $1 million. Then,
first, have rich parents, right?
Right.
So
exactly.
Annie Alexander talked about in her speech. She had a big statistic up on her slide that said 98%, and she said basically of all the NFT projects that start, 98% fail. And she talked about this idea of community. So when I got up there and I talked about social tokens, I didn't give the whole Web3 social token thing. I really pulled off to the side and I said, hey, if you're doing NFTs, social tokens, DAOs, whatever it is, my recommendation is to not launch a token project until you have some kind of minimum viable audience. And my take was, start with building an audience first, and then you could possibly leverage the token into building a community. Or build the audience, then build the community. There's lots of Web 2.0 ways to do that, whether that's Discord or Telegram or LinkedIn groups or email even, whatever the case is. And then you can layer a token project on top of that once the people already know, like, and trust you. I think that is the absolute best way to do it. I just didn't hear enough of it. And I think it's probably because the majority of the people that were giving presentations, they were technologists. They really understand the crypto market, and they were fantastic, and I learned a ton of stuff, but they didn't necessarily come from marketing and publishing. So that's when I heard that. I'm like, oh, so I just wanted to make sure that we never say, hey, go run out and do an XYZ project. You still need to do the blocking and tackling of figuring out what your differentiation is, focus on one platform, build an audience on that platform over time. Hopefully, and we've talked about it on this show, you build some kind of an email offering so you have some control and you can port that audience somewhere else. If, let's say, a MailChimp blocks you or doesn't like what you're saying, just like we talked about with PayPal. And then you get to the point where you have a minimum group of followers and fans that really trust what you're doing and want to get involved in a Web3 project that's a little bit new, a little bit exciting, but you already have that following. So I just wanted to share that, Robert, because I don't think enough people are talking about that. It really starts with, you have to really do a lot of Web 2.0 in order to get to the Web 2.1, 2.5, and ultimately Web 3-ish. Decentralized idea of what this thing could be. We got a long way to go, and we've got to build an audience first and foremost. So that's my take.
Well, it's the funny thing is that it lines up with, actually weirdly lines up with my talk here at Marketing Profs, where I talked about the idea of the content marketing strategy in 2023. A lot of us sort of start with we got to create better content. You got to create all this new stuff. You got to create, and my sort of view and my advice was, no, you have to build your foundation first before you do anything neat. If you want it to scale, if you want it to last, if you want it to be, something that's going to go beyond just a viral campaign, you have to build the foundation first. And that's what you're really saying is that you have to build your community first. And really, that's where the hard work is. We spend so much time on this podcast saying, don't build your home on rented land. And what we end up with is sort of the vision in your head is, oh, yeah, right, I shouldn't be spending so much time building on social media. But the first thing you got to do is build a home.
Yeah. Build on a platform.
You have to build a home first before you can actually have a home either on rented land or your own land. And so, it's not the sexiest thing in the world, but figuring out that basic blocking and tackling first before you get into things like Web3 or a social token or whatever is critical.
Absolutely. By the way, really good time to do something in Web3.
Yeah, it's huge.
But again,
time.
Don't do it unless you already have an audience that's willing to go along for the ride. Because whatever you launch with, just like any kind of product coming from a content base, it's going to change and you're going to pivot at some point. You need a group of people that already trust you.
That's right.
So there you go. Anyways.
That is correct. All right. Well, that's wonderful. What's going on for the week?
Oh, wow. Well, I got... I'm gonna...
More travel.
No, yeah. I do have travel next week. I will be in Vegas at the Printing United conference next week. So that's a big... I hear they've got more than 10,000 coming to that event. So I'm very excited to see 700 booths or something. I haven't been to a big event like that in a long time, so I'm interested in that. But on Sunday, we're going to try again at the Browns game.
With the Browns.
Play the Patriots, and
it's a winnable game.
I've been to 4 of the 5 in person to 4 of the 5 Browns games this year, and we're 1-3. And that one was a little shaky. So I'm a little concerned it's me. But I am going to go back again. Yep. And if they lose this one in a strange fashion, like they've lost the 3, I might have to reconsider. I might have to watch from home. I don't know. It's going to be a tough decision. Really don't know what to do.
Okay.
Anyways, what do you got going on?
I got, the world seems to have opened up again. Like October 1st came and it seems like businesses went, oh my goodness gracious, it's the fourth quarter. We need to do some stuff. So we have, I mean, I'm blessed. I pleased, this is the most, sort of humble brag ever, but we have a lot of client work to do, and that's great. And I have so much gratitude for it. But we're going to be busy. And I'm glad I'm sort of ending here at Marketing Pros. I have one more speaking engagement before the end of the year, but nothing coming up for the next month or so. So it'll be heads down working for me.
Well, congratulations. I'm sure it's all because of the popularity of this podcast. That's where you're getting all your client work.
Absolutely. I'm sure every single
it has something to do
I did have a wonderful person come up to me at the Marketing Profs B2B and talk about how she loved our podcast, and it was so wonderful. She said she's been listening from the very beginning, and it helped shape her career, and now she's leading a team and all that. So it was really cool to hear.
Did you say what was the first episode on? Do you remember? Did you grill her? Did you say?
I did not.
Did you say you remember us talking about John Deere?
I should have. Yeah, I totally should have.
I remember we talked about Forbes and John Deere. It was a classic episode.
Yeah, and Forbes and John Deere. I totally remember it. Yeah, that was our This Old Marketing.
I don't remember
example.
any other in between. I remember the first one and the one we just recorded. That's it.
Just know that we've talked a lot about Facebook. That's all. That's really all. And the Browns and the Cowboys. Probably in the word cloud that is our podcast. Those are the three big words. All right. That is it for us for this week. If you want to get all the goodness of this podcast show notes, well, you should just listen more. That's really it. You can dive into any of the other 344 episodes if you just get on over to our website at thisoldmarketing.site. Remember to hashtag us up. Thank you to, oh my gosh, there's so many people to thank. We'll do that on the next episode, is thank a whole bunch of people. But remember, hashtag us up on Twitter. Send us email. We love it. Those story ideas, just keep them coming. Hashtag thisoldmarketing on Twitter. And until we meet again next week, remember, it's your story to tell. Tell it. See you next week on This Old